Blood splattered across the white floor of the medical wing, and something massive screamed behind the reinforced doors. Dr. Ben Walsh watched through the observation window as 3 security officers backed away from the entrance, their weapons raised and glowing with ready charges. The creature inside thrashed against its restraints, each movement sending tremors through the walls. Absolutely not. Commander Prill crossed all 4 of his arms, his purple skin darker than usual with stress. That thing has killed before. It will kill again. Ben pressed his hand against the cool glass. Through the chaos inside, he could see the source of everyone's terror. The Ravenclaw measured at least 12 feet from its snout to the tip of its armored tail. Obsidian scales covered its body, each one sharp enough to slice through standard protective gear. 6 powerful legs ended in claws that had carved through mining equipment like soft clay. Its mouth hung open, revealing rows of teeth that seemed designed specifically for tearing apart anything unfortunate enough to get close. But Ben saw something else. He saw the way the creature favored its left side. He saw the pool of dark blood spreading beneath it. He saw the rapid, shallow breathing that spoke of severe internal damage. "It's dying," Ben said quietly. "Good," Dr. Yona replied. The crystalline alien's body refracted the harsh medical lights into rainbow patterns across the walls. "Better it dies than takes one of us with it." Ben turned to face them both. "You called me here for a reason. You have 18 different species on this station, and not one of your medics will go near that animal. So you dragged a human out of veterinary rotation because you heard we're crazy enough to try." "We did not use the word crazy," Commander Prill said, though his translator unit hesitated over the phrasing. "You thought it." Ben looked back at the Ravenclaw. The creature had stopped thrashing. Its 6 eyes, each one as large as Ben's fist, had locked onto him through the window. "How long since the accident?" 4 hours, Yona said. "The mining company wants it euthanized. They have already sent the authorization codes." 4 hours. Ben shook his head. "And you've just been watching it bleed?" "It is from Targa 7th, Commander Prill said, as if that explained everything. "A Class 9 predator from a death world. It has no natural instinct to trust other species. Its brain is wired for hunt, kill, consume. Nothing else." "Targa 7 has a hazard rating of 8.7, Yona added. "Your Earth is rated 12.4. You should understand better than anyone why this creature cannot be approached safely." Ben almost smiled at that. Back home in Montana, he'd spent 15 years treating animals that most people wouldn't go near without tranquilizers and full body armor. He'd pulled porcupine quills from a grizzly's face while it was conscious. He'd set a broken leg on a mountain lion that had crawled into someone's barn seeking help. He'd even performed surgery on a wolf that local ranchers wanted to shoot on sight. Every single time, people had told him the same thing. Too dangerous, too wild, too unpredictable. Let it die. Every single time, Ben had proven them wrong. "Open the door," he said. "What?" All of Yona's crystalline facets seemed to refocus at once. "Open the door. Turn off the security fields. Let me in there." Commander Prill's skin flushed almost black. "You will die. I cannot authorize this." "Then I'll do it without authorization." Ben moved toward the access panel, but Prill stepped in front of him. "You have been on this station for 3 months, the commander said. In that time, you have revolutionized our veterinary protocols for small creatures. You have saved the lives of 17 companion animals that our staff had declared beyond help. You are valuable, Dr. Walsh. I cannot let you throw your life away on a doomed predator. It's not doomed if someone treats it." Ben met Prill's 3-eyed gaze without flinching. "And I didn't come to this station to play it safe. I came because you needed someone who understands dangerous animals. Well, here's your test case. Either you trust me, or you admit you wasted both our time bringing me here." Silence filled the corridor. Somewhere in the medical wing, equipment beeped steadily. The Ravenclaw's breathing had become even more labored. Yona's voice chimed like struck glass. "The commander is correct. This is suicide. Ravenclaws have been studied for 73 years since first contact. They show no capacity for trust, no ability to recognize medical assistance, no understanding of help versus harm. You will enter that room and it will kill you because that is what its evolution designed it to do." Ben looked at the creature again. It had stopped watching him. Its eyes were starting to glaze. "Minutes," he thought. "Maybe less." "My sister was killed by a dog when I was 9 years old," Ben said. "German Shepherd, trained for protection, but something went wrong in its head. After that, everyone in my town wanted every aggressive dog put down. No second chances. No rehabilitation. Just death. He pressed his palm flat against the window. I became a vet because I knew the truth. That dog didn't wake up evil. It was scared or sick or protecting something it thought was threatened. Every aggressive animal I've ever met had a reason. Fear, pain, or protection. That's it. If you can address the reason, you can reach the animal. This is not an animal, Commander Prill said. This is a killing machine. No, Ben said softly. It's a patient. He moved past the commander before anyone could stop him and placed his hand on the door's access panel. The security system blinked red, then yellow, then green. Behind him, he heard Yona make a sound like breaking ice and Commander Prill shouting orders into his comm unit. The door slid open. Warm air rushed out, heavy with the smell of blood and something else, something sharp and wild. The Ravenclaw's head swung toward the opening, its massive jaws parting to reveal those terrible teeth. Ben stepped inside. The door sealed behind him with a hiss that sounded too much like a coffin closing. Through the window, he could see Prill's horrified face and Yona's fractured reflection. He could see security officers running toward the room, though they'd never reach him in time if things went wrong. He turned his back on all of them and walked toward the Ravenclaw. The creature tried to rise, but its strength had failed. It managed to lift its head, a deep growl rumbling from somewhere in its chest. Warning, threat, stay back or die. Ben knelt down just outside the range of those claws. He could feel heat radiating from the creature's body. Fever, probably. The wound was infected. He took a slow breath and let it out even slower. Then he spoke, his voice low and steady, the same tone he'd used on 100 frightened animals back home. I've got you, easy buddy. I know it hurts. I know you're scared. But I'm here to help. I'm not going to hurt you, I promise. The growling didn't stop, but something changed in those 6 eyes. They focused on him with an intelligence that startled Ben even though he'd been expecting it. The creature studied him, reading something in his posture or his scent or his tone. Ben raised one hand slowly, showing his empty palm. See, no weapons. No threats, just me. Just help. The Ravenclaw's breathing hitched. For a moment, Ben thought it might lunge anyway, might decide that killing him was worth the energy it would cost. Then, slowly, the growling faded. The creature lowered its head back to the floor, those eyes never leaving Ben's face, waiting, watching, choosing to trust or choosing to conserve strength. Ben couldn't be sure which, but it was a start. Ben moved closer, speaking softly the whole time, and reached out to touch obsidian scales that no one else in the galaxy had dared to approach. Every screen in the station showed the same impossible image. A human, small and soft compared to the monster beside him, had his hand pressed against scales that could cut through steel. The Ravenclaw watched him with those 6 unblinking eyes, breathing hard but no longer struggling, no longer trying to kill. In the security office, Officer Trent stared at his monitor. This shouldn't be possible. Beside him, his partner checked the biometric readings for the 3rd time. The creature's stress hormones are dropping. Heart rate stabilizing. All 5 of them. How? No one had an answer. Ben kept his movements small and predictable. His hand rested on the Ravenclaw's shoulder, feeling the rapid pulse beneath those scales. The creature's skin was hot enough to hurt, but he didn't pull away. Any sudden movement might break whatever fragile understanding they'd reached. That's it, he murmured. Just breathe. In and out. You're doing great. Through the observation window, he could see Dr. Yona gesturing frantically at Commander Prill. He couldn't hear them through the sealed door, but he could guess. They wanted him to back out, to give up this insane attempt and let nature take its course. But Ben had seen the wound now. 3 of the creature's 5 hearts had been punctured when mining equipment collapsed during extraction. Internal bleeding on a scale that would have killed most species within an hour. The fact that the Ravenclaw had survived this long spoke to incredible resilience. The fact that it was still conscious was a miracle. I need supplies, Ben called out, not taking his eyes off the creature. Medical kit, the advanced trauma package, and get me a schematic of Ravenclaw anatomy. Everything you have. Static crackled from a speaker near the ceiling. Commander Prill's voice came through, tight with tension. Dr. Walsh, the euthanization team is 3 minutes away. Please exit the room so they can proceed with the termination. Not happening. Ben ran his hand along the creature's side, feeling for the exact location of the damage. The Ravenclaw flinched but didn't strike. This animal wants to live. I'm going to give it that chance. It is not an animal, Yona's crystalline voice chimed through the speaker. It is a classified threat. It's a patient. Ben found the wound, a ragged tear in the scales where metal had punched through. Blood oozed steadily from the opening, darker than human blood but not by much. And I'm a doctor, so get me those supplies or get out of my way. Silence filled the room. Ben counted his own heartbeats. 5, 10, 15. Then something scraped against metal. He glanced toward the wall and saw a small access port sliding open. A medical kit appeared in the opening, pushed through by someone he couldn't see. Thank you, Ben said. He moved toward the kit, slowly enough that the Ravenclaw could track his movements. The creature's eyes followed him, but its body remained still. Trusting or simply too weak to move, Ben still wasn't sure. He grabbed the kit and returned to his position, kneeling in the spreading pool of blood. The kit contained standard trauma supplies. Nothing designed for a creature this large, but the principles were the same whether he was treating a cat or a Ravenclaw. Stop the bleeding. Stabilize the patient. Keep them calm. This is gonna hurt, Ben said, opening a package of synthetic flesh sealant. I won't lie to you, but I need you to stay still. Can you do that for me? The Ravenclaw's eyes fixed on his face. Ben had worked with enough animals to recognize intelligence when he saw it. This wasn't some mindless predator. Something aware looked back at him from behind those eyes. He pressed the sealant against the wound. The Ravenclaw's entire body went rigid. A sound like grinding stone came from its throat, but it didn't move. Didn't strike. Didn't do anything except endure. Good, Ben said, working quickly. You're doing so good. Almost done with this part. The sealant bonded to the scales, forming a temporary barrier against further blood loss. Not a real solution, but it bought time. Ben's hands moved with practiced efficiency, the same motions he'd performed 1,000 times on 1,000 different creatures. Halfway through, something occurred to him. Back home, when he'd treated that injured wolf, he'd talked the whole time. Not because the wolf understood his words, but because his tone carried meaning. Calm voice meant no threat. Steady voice meant safety. Quiet voice meant friend, not enemy. You remind me of someone? Ben said, applying pressure to a particularly bad section. Bear I treated once. Grizzly, maybe 800 pounds. Got caught in an illegal trap and tore her leg half off getting free. Everyone said she was too dangerous, too far gone. Said I'd be stupid to try. The Ravenclaw's breathing had steadied. Was it listening? Or just focusing on something other than pain? Took me 6 hours to patch her up, Ben continued. She sat there the whole time watching me work. Never tried to bite, never swiped at me. She knew. Somehow she understood that I was helping. He moved to the next section of the wound. When I finally finished, she stood up and just looked at me for a long moment. Then she walked away, back into the forest. I never saw her again, but park rangers told me she survived. Had cubs the next year. Lived another 12 years before old age got her. The sealant work was done. Not perfect, but the immediate crisis was handled. Ben sat back on his heels and wiped blood from his hands onto his pants. You're going to live too, he said. I promise you that. The Ravenclaw made a sound softer than before. Not quite a purr, not quite a hum. Something between the two that Ben had never heard from any creature. Outside, faces crowded against the observation window. Ben could see aliens from a dozen different species, all watching with expressions he couldn't quite read. Fear, certainly, but maybe something else too. Curiosity, wonder, hope. Dr. Yona's voice came through the speaker again. Dr. Walsh, the biometrics have stabilized. Whatever you are doing appears to be working. I'm just talking to a friend, Ben said. That creature is not your friend. It cannot be. Ben looked at the Ravenclaw, at those 6 eyes still watching him with that strange intelligence. Then explain why it hasn't killed me yet. No one had an answer for that either. The door suddenly chimed. Someone was requesting entry. Ben stood, positioning himself between the door and the Ravenclaw. Who is it? It is me, Yona's voice said, no longer filtered through the speaker. The crystalline alien stood just outside, their body refracting the hallway lights into fractured rainbows. I am coming in to assist you. You said this was suicide. I said it should be suicide. Yona placed a hand on the access panel. But you have shown me something I did not think was possible. Perhaps there is more to learn here. The door opened. Yona stepped inside, their crystalline feet clicking against the floor. The Ravenclaw's head swung toward this new presence, muscles tensing beneath those scales. Easy, Ben said to both of them. Yona is a friend. They're here to help. The creature watched the alien approach, its body language screaming threat assessment, but it didn't attack. It waited, letting Ben guide the situation. Yona knelt beside them, their movements careful and precise. Tell me what you need. Ben allowed himself a small smile. I need someone to hold this scanner while I check the internal damage. Think you can handle that? I have performed surgery in zero gravity during a hull breach, Yona said. I believe I can manage holding a scanner. Fair point. They worked together in silence, Ben calling out readings while Yona recorded the data. The internal damage was worse than Ben had hoped. All 5 hearts showed stress. 2 lungs had partial collapse. The liver had a tear that was slowly leaking toxins into the bloodstream. This creature should be dead, Yona said quietly. Yeah, Ben agreed, but it's not, which means we're going to fight like hell to keep it that way. The Ravenclaw's tail twitched, the only sign it was still conscious and listening. Outside, more faces pressed against the window. Word had spread through the station. The impossible human and his impossible patient. Commander Prill's voice crackled through the speaker one more time. Dr. Walsh, the euthanization team has been delayed. You have 1 hour before they arrive with proper authorization. Whatever you are planning, I suggest you work quickly. Ben looked at Yona. The crystalline alien looked back, their faceted eyes reflecting his own determined expression. Then we better get started, Ben said, reaching for the surgical tools. 6 hours had passed since Ben made the first incision. His hands were steady despite the exhaustion pulling at his muscles. Beside him, Dr. Yona worked with the focused precision of a surgeon who had performed 1,000 impossible procedures. Together they navigated the alien anatomy of a creature that should have killed them both by now. The Ravenclaw lay perfectly still. No anesthesia coursed through its veins because every simulation had shown the same result. The chemicals would shut down its hearts faster than the injury would. So they worked on a conscious patient, relying entirely on trust that shouldn't exist. Suture ready? Yona said, their crystalline fingers manipulating the medical tools with surprising dexterity. Ben held the damaged heart steady, feeling it pulse against his palms. The organ was larger than his head, dense with muscle that had evolved on a world where weakness meant death. A world not so different from Earth, really, just a different roll of evolution's dice. How did humans survive on a Class 12 death world? Yona asked, breaking the surgical silence. By learning to read the things that wanted to eat us. Ben carefully aligned the torn tissue. You can't outrun a predator on Earth. Most of them are faster, stronger. But if you can understand what they're thinking, you can predict what they'll do next. Understanding a predator's mind sounds impossible. It's just pattern recognition. He began the delicate work of repairing the heart tissue. Fear makes them defensive. Hunger makes them calculated. Pain makes them unpredictable. Protect something they love and they become unstoppable. Learn those patterns and you stop seeing monsters. You just see scared, hungry, hurting creatures trying to survive. The Ravenclaw's breathing hitched. Ben paused, his hands motionless, waiting. The creature's 6 eyes rolled toward him, and for a moment Ben saw something flicker in that gaze. Recognition, maybe, understanding. Almost done, Ben murmured. Hang in there, buddy. Outside the observation window, the crowd had grown. Ben could see aliens from species he didn't recognize, all pressed against the glass to witness what shouldn't be happening. Commander Prill stood among them, his forearms crossed, his expression unreadable. A young alien pushed through the crowd. Small, maybe a child by their species standards. They pressed their hand against the window, and Ben saw wonder instead of fear in those eyes. The damaged liver section is accessible, Yona said, pulling Ben's attention back to the surgery. But I cannot reach it with my appendages. Ben shifted position carefully, aware that every movement sent ripples of sensation through the Ravenclaw's nervous system. Guide me through it. Tell me what you see on the scanner. They worked in tandem, Yona reading the internal structure while Ben's hands went where crystalline limbs could not. The liver had a clean tear, probably from a piece of shrapnel. Repairable, if they could stop the bleeding long enough to seal it properly. The mining corporation representatives are approaching the medical wing, a voice announced through the speaker. Commander Prill, warning them. They have security authorization and a court order for immediate termination. Ben's hands didn't stop moving. Tell them to wait. Dr. Walsh, tell them to wait or I walk out of here and let them explain to the galaxy why they killed a patient during active surgery. Silence. Then, I will. Delay them as long as possible. Yona's faceted eyes caught the light as they glanced at Ben. You would truly walk away? Leave the surgery incomplete? No, Ben admitted. But they don't know that. Something that might have been a laugh chimed from Yona's crystalline throat. Humans, you bluff even when the stakes are lives. Especially then. Ben sealed the last section of the liver and checked his work. The bleeding had stopped. The organ was damaged but functional. How are we doing on time? The surgery has taken 6 hours and 17 minutes, Yona said. By all medical understanding, this creature should have died 4 hours ago. Its will to survive is extraordinary. Not just will. Ben cleaned his hands and reached up to rest his palm against the Ravenclaw's neck, feeling the rapid pulse beneath those scales. It knows we're helping. Some part of its brain understands that we're not a threat. How can you be certain? Because I'm still alive. The logic was simple and irrefutable. Yona made a sound like wind chimes in a soft breeze. Agreement, Ben had learned. The crystalline alien's version of a nod. They finished the internal repairs in silence, working with the synchronized efficiency of a team that had operated together for years rather than hours. Every few minutes, Ben paused to speak softly to the Ravenclaw, maintaining that thread of connection that kept the creature calm. Finally, he began closing the external wound. The synthetic sealant had held, but now he reinforced it with surgical staples designed for large fauna. Each one clicked into place with a sound like metal on stone. There. Ben sat back, his entire body aching. That's everything we can do for now. The Ravenclaw's breathing had steadied to a slow, regular rhythm. Its eyes were still open, still watching, but the tension had left its body. Rest, Ben thought, finally allowing itself to rest because the pain had eased. I need to access Earth's medical database, Yona said suddenly. Ben looked at them. Why? Because you have done something here that contradicts everything I was taught about cross-species interaction with apex predators. Yona's crystalline structure seemed to shimmer with agitation. I need to understand how humans developed this ability. What evolutionary pressure could possibly create a species that approaches danger with compassion instead of fear? It's not that complicated, Ben said. But he pulled up the database access on his wrist display anyway. Look up the domestication of Canis lupus. The wolf. Yona's appendages flew across their own display, reading at a speed Ben couldn't match. He watched their reaction, saw the moment comprehension struck. Every facet of Yona's crystalline body seemed to refocus at once. You domesticated wolves? Yona's voice hit a frequency that made Ben's teeth ache. Wolves hunted your ancestors for thousands of years. They were apex predators in your environment. And you brought them into your homes? About 15,000 years ago, yeah. Ben checked the Ravenclaw's vital signs one more time. All stable. Turned them into dogs. Best friends humanity ever had. I do not have words. Yona continued reading, their movements becoming more agitated with each new piece of information. You domesticated cats, horses, cattle, species that either hunted you or could easily kill you. You looked at danger and saw potential partnership. We saw animals that were useful and figured out how to work with them instead of against them. Ben stood, his knees protesting the movement. That's all this is, Yona. Same principle, different species. No. Yona turned to face him fully, their crystalline body refracting the surgical lights into a dazzling display. This is why the galaxy fears humans, not because you are violent, because you are incomprehensible. You treat Deathworld predators as companions. You approach the galaxy's most feared creature and call it buddy. You have no survival instinct. We have plenty of survival instinct, Ben said. We just define survival differently. For humans, surviving means understanding, and understanding requires getting close even when it's dangerous. The door chimed. Ben turned to see Commander Prill entering, followed by 3 aliens in corporate uniforms. Mining company representatives, Ben guessed from their expensive clothing and the way they held themselves. Used to being obeyed. The lead representative, a tall being with gray skin and too many joints in their arms, looked at the Ravenclaw with cold eyes. Dr. Walsh, I am Director Finn of Galactic Resource Extraction. I have a court order for the immediate termination of company property, designated as Ravenclaw Unit 7. Please step away from the creature. Ben didn't move. That creature just survived 6 hours of surgery. It's stable and recovering. There's no reason to terminate it. The reason is company policy and liability law. Director Finn held up a data pad. This creature is classified as a Class 9 threat. It cannot be safely transported, contained, or rehomed. Termination is the only option approved by our legal department. Behind the representatives, more security officers had arrived. Their weapons were drawn but not aimed, waiting for orders. The Ravenclaw stirred, sensing the tension in the room. Its 6 eyes opened fully, fixing on the newcomers with the cold assessment of a predator evaluating threats. Ben stepped directly in front of the creature, blocking the line of sight between it and the corporate representatives. "You're not killing my patient. Dr. Walsh, please be reasonable." "No." Ben crossed his arms. "You be reasonable. This animal just proved it can trust. It can cooperate. It can understand that not everything in the universe is a threat. You want to kill it because you're afraid, not because it's dangerous, but because you don't understand it." Director Finn's expression didn't change. Security removed Dr. Walsh from the medical bay. 2 officers stepped forward.
Behind Ben, the Ravenclaw growled, a sound that vibrated through the floor itself.
The officers froze. "Don't," Ben said to everyone in the room. "Don't make this worse than it has to be." Then something unexpected happened. The young alien child from the observation window pushed through the crowd. They moved with the fearless determination of youth, ducking past legs and arms until they stood in the open doorway. "Wait," the child said in a high, clear voice. Everyone turned to look. The child walked into the medical bay, their small feet padding across the blood-stained floor. They walked past the security officers, past the corporate representatives, past Commander Prill's outstretched arms trying to stop them. They walked right up to the Ravenclaw. "Stop!" Director Finn shouted, but the child didn't listen. The Ravenclaw lowered its massive head, bringing those 6 eyes level with the small alien standing before it. For a breathless moment, nothing moved. The entire room held its collective breath, waiting for tragedy. Then the child reached out with one small hand and touched the creature's snout. The Ravenclaw's eyes closed, not in aggression, not in threat, in something that looked almost like peace. 3 days after the surgery, Ben woke on the floor beside a sleeping predator. His back ached from the hard surface, and his neck had developed a permanent crick from using his jacket as a pillow. But he hadn't left the medical bay since that first night, and he wasn't planning to start now. The Ravenclaw's breathing had improved. Deep and steady, the sound of healing rather than struggling. Ben sat up carefully, not wanting to disturb the creature's rest. Sunlight streamed through the observation window where someone had adjusted the polarization to mimic natural daylight cycles. "You look terrible," Dr. Yona said from the doorway. The crystalline alien carried a tray with what passed for breakfast on the station, synthetic protein bars and something that might have been coffee, though Ben had learned not to ask too many questions about station food. "Thanks." Ben accepted the tray and bit into the protein bar. It tasted like cardboard mixed with vague fruit flavor, but it was calories. "How's the situation outside?" "Complicated," Yona settled beside him, their crystalline structure catching the light in ways that still fascinated Ben. The footage of the child touching the Ravenclaw has been viewed 47 million times across the galactic network. Public opinion has shifted dramatically. Ben glanced at the window. The crowd had never really left, though Commander Prill had established viewing hours to prevent disruption. Right now, dozens of faces pressed against the glass, watching, hoping. What about the mining corporation? Director Finn has been recalled to their home office for emergency meetings. Yona's tone suggested satisfaction. "It seems their shareholders are unhappy with the negative attention. Terminating a creature that peacefully interacted with a child is not good publicity. So we won. For now." Yona handed him the coffee substitute. "But the Ravenclaw cannot stay here indefinitely. It needs proper habitat, space to move. The medical bay is adequate for recovery, but not for life." Ben had been thinking about that. The Ravenclaw was already showing signs of restlessness, shifting position when it thought he wasn't watching, testing the strength in its healing legs. Soon it would want to walk, to explore, to do all the things a healthy creature needed. "There are conservation worlds," Ben said, "places where rescued creatures live in monitored environments. And you believe they would accept a Ravenclaw? After this?" Ben gestured to the window, to the faces watching with wonder instead of fear. "Yeah, I think they might." The Ravenclaw stirred, its 6 eyes opening one by one. It looked at Ben first, then at Yona, then at the tray of food. Its nostrils flared, testing the air. "Hungry?" Ben asked. In response, the creature's stomach made a sound like distant thunder. Ben laughed. Yeah, I bet you are. Let's see what we can do about that. Feeding a Ravenclaw turned out to be complicated. Dr. Yona had researched their dietary requirements. But finding suitable food on a station designed for dozens of species with radically different nutritional needs was challenging. They settled on a combination of raw proteins from the station's processing plant, supplemented with minerals and vitamins. Ben offered the first piece by hand, holding it out on his palm. The Ravenclaw sniffed it carefully, then took it with surprising gentleness. Those massive jaws that could crush metal barely touched Ben's skin. Incredible, Yona murmured. It is consciously controlling its strength. It knows I'm fragile compared to it. Ben offered another piece. Predators are good at gauging their prey, knowing how much force is needed. This one is just applying that knowledge in reverse. They fed the Ravenclaw in silence, Ben providing food while Yona recorded every detail for their research. When the creature had eaten its fill, it lowered its head and nudged Ben's shoulder with its snout. Gentle, almost affectionate. Ben ran his hand along the creature's neck, feeling the healing tissue beneath those scales. You want to try walking today? The Ravenclaw's eyes brightened. Definitely intelligent, Ben thought. Definitely understanding more than anyone gave it credit for. Slowly, Ben said, standing. He offered his hand, not that the creature needed it for balance, but as a gesture, support, partnership. The Ravenclaw gathered its legs beneath its body and pushed upward. The movement was shaky, muscles still rebuilding after days of inactivity. But it stood, all 12 feet of predator, on 6 slightly trembling legs. Outside the window, someone cheered. The sound was muffled through the glass, but the Ravenclaw heard it. Its head swung toward the observation window, toward all those watching faces. They're not here to hurt you, Ben said. They're just curious. Probably never seen anything like you before. The creature looked at him, then back at the window. Slowly, carefully, it took a step forward, then another. Walking was clearly painful, but it pushed through, determined to move. Ben walked beside it, ready to provide support if needed. They made a circuit of the medical bay, slow and careful. By the third lap, the Ravenclaw's steps had steadied, muscle memory returning, strength rebuilding. Commander Prill entered the medical bay, his forearms carrying a data pad and what looked like official documents. Dr. Walsh, I have news. Ben steadied the Ravenclaw as it paused, watching the commander approach. Good news, I hope? That depends on your perspective. Prill stopped a respectful distance away, giving the creature space. The Galactic Coalition for Ethical Xenofauna Treatment has requested you as their lead consultant for dangerous species rehabilitation. They are offering to establish a new medical facility on this station, specifically designed for cases like this one. Ben blinked. They want to turn this place into a sanctuary? They want to turn you into the galaxy's expert on treating untreatable creatures. Prill's skin flushed a lighter shade of purple. What Ben had learned was the equivalent of a smile. Apparently, your methods have attracted significant attention across multiple worlds. What about the Ravenclaw? Where does it go? There is a conservation world called Haven that has agreed to accept it. Prill pulled up a holographic display from his datapad. It is a protected sanctuary for rescued creatures. 300 square miles of varied terrain, monitored but not confined. The Ravenclaw would be free to live as it chooses, with medical support available if needed. Ben looked at the creature beside him. 3 days ago, everyone had wanted it dead. Now they were offering it a home. When? The transport arrives in 4 days. That gives you time to ensure it is stable enough for the journey. 4 days. Ben felt something twist in his chest. He'd known from the beginning that this was temporary, that the Ravenclaw would eventually need more than a medical bay could provide. But knowing and accepting were different things. The Ravenclaw nudged his shoulder again as if sensing his thoughts. Ben pressed his forehead against those obsidian scales, feeling the warmth of living tissue beneath his skin. You're going to love Haven, he whispered. Open sky, room to run. Other creatures like you who need a safe place. The next 4 days passed in a blur. Ben worked with the Ravenclaw constantly, rebuilding its strength through careful exercise and proper nutrition. Dr. Yona assisted, their initial fear transformed into genuine fascination. Together, they documented everything, creating a comprehensive guide for treating dangerous species. Other medical staff began volunteering to help. First one, then three, then a dozen, all of them working to overcome their instinctive fear responses, learning to see past teeth and claws to the living being beneath. On the morning of the fourth day, Ben woke to find the young alien child from before sitting just outside the medical bay, their face pressed against the observation window. They'd been coming every day, watching the Ravenclaw with endless curiosity. Ben opened the door and gestured for them to enter. "Want to say goodbye?" The child nodded, shy but determined. They walked up to the Ravenclaw, who lowered its head in greeting. Small hands touched obsidian scales, and the child giggled at the texture. "What's your name?" Ben asked. "Pip," the child said. "I want to be a doctor like you when I grow up. I want to help scary things so they're not scary anymore." Ben smiled. "That's a good goal. We need more doctors like that." Pip looked up at him with wide eyes. "Can anyone do what you do? Or just humans?" "Anyone who's willing to try," Ben said. The trick is remembering that scared and scary are not the same thing. Most creatures that seem dangerous are just afraid. If you can help them not be afraid, they stop being dangerous. Commander Prill arrived to announce the transport's arrival. Ben took a deep breath and stood, offering his hand to the Ravenclaw one last time. "Ready to go see your new home?" The creature stood, its movements now smooth and confident, fully healed, ready for whatever came next. They walked through the station together, Ben and the Ravenclaw, with Yona and Prill following at a respectful distance. Everywhere they passed, aliens stopped to watch. No longer fearful, no longer seeing a monster, just seeing a creature going home. At the docking bay, a specialized transport waited. Its cargo hold had been modified to provide comfortable space for large fauna. The pilot, a grizzled alien with too many scars and not enough fear, greeted them with a nod. "Dr. Walsh? I'm Captain Morris. I run creatures to Haven 3 times a month. Don't worry, I'll take good care of your friend here." Ben walked the Ravenclaw up the ramp into the hold. Soft lighting and climate control would keep it comfortable during the journey. Food and water stations lined the walls. Everything it needed for the trip. He knelt one last time, pressing his hand against those familiar scales. "You're going to be fine. Better than fine. You're going to thrive." The Ravenclaw pressed its massive head against his chest, just as it had done dozens of times over the past week. A gesture of trust. Of thanks, maybe. Of goodbye. Ben stood and walked down the ramp, his throat tight. He didn't look back as the door sealed. Didn't watch as the transport detached from the station. Some goodbyes were better done cleanly. Dr. Yona stood beside him, their crystalline form shimmering in the docking bay lights. "You helped it. Changed its entire future. Why do you look sad?" "Because I'll probably never see it again," Ben said. "But that's okay. That's how it should be. My job was to get it healthy and send it somewhere safe. Mission accomplished. And now?" Ben looked around the docking bay, thinking about all the creatures out there that needed help. All the beings the galaxy had deemed too dangerous, too wild, too impossible to save. "Now we start building that facility," he said. "Because if there's one Ravenclaw that needed help, there are probably 100 more just like it." Yona's form seemed to pulse with light. "Then let us begin." 3 months after the Ravenclaw left for Haven, Ben's new facility opened with less ceremony than he'd expected. No ribbon cutting. No speeches. Just a quiet morning when Commander Prill activated the main systems and declared the critical species medical unit operational. The facility occupied an entire wing of the station now, with specialized treatment rooms, recovery habitats, and equipment designed specifically for creatures that other medical centers refused to treat. Dr. Yona had worked tirelessly on the technical specifications, while Ben focused on training a team willing to face their fears. That team now consisted of 12 members from 7 different species. All volunteers, all determined to learn the impossible. "Remember," Ben said to his assembled staff, "we don't use sedation unless absolutely necessary. We don't use restraints unless the creature is an active danger to itself, and we never, ever give up on a patient just because it has teeth." The team nodded, though he could see nervousness in more than a few expressions. They'd trained extensively on simulations and smaller creatures, but today would be their first real test. A distress call had come in an hour ago from a deep space freighter. Something was loose in their cargo hold. Something that had already injured 3 crew members. Something unknown. "Details are limited," Dr. Yona said, pulling up the freighter's transmission on the main display. The creature was discovered inside a shipping container from Targus Aceton. The container's contents were listed as mining equipment, but clearly something else was included. Another Ravenclaw? Ben asked. Unknown. The descriptions are vague. Large. Aggressive. Covered in some kind of armor plating. Yona's crystalline structure flickered with uncertainty. The freighter captain is threatening to vent the cargo hold into space if we cannot arrive within 6 hours. Ben checked his equipment. Medical kit, scanning devices, protective gear that he probably wouldn't use because creatures could sense fear, and fear smell came through protective gear just fine. How far out are they? 2 hours by shuttle, Commander Prill said. I have already authorized your departure. The team transport is being prepared now. Good. Ben turned to his staff. I need 4 volunteers. This one might get dangerous. Every hand went up. Even the newest members, aliens who had never treated anything more threatening than an aggressive pet, wanted to come. Ben felt something warm settle in his chest. Pride, maybe. Or hope. He selected Dr. Yona and 3 others who had shown the most aptitude during training. A Lithian named Ray, whose crystalline structure was smaller but more flexible than Yona's. A Centaurian called Dex who had 6 arms and surprising strength. And a human woman named Amy Chen who'd arrived from Earth 2 weeks ago with a background in large animal rescue. The shuttle ride was tense. Amy sat beside Ben, her knee bouncing with nervous energy. What if it's worse than the Ravenclaw? Then we adapt. Ben watched the stars slide past through the viewport. Every creature is different. Different fears, different pain responses, different ways of communicating. The principles stay the same, but the application changes. You ever meet something you couldn't help? Ben thought about that. Once, a bull elephant seal with advanced neurological damage. It was suffering, and there was nothing I could do except make the end peaceful. That's part of this, too. Knowing when help means letting go. Amy didn't look comforted, but she nodded, understanding, at least in theory. The freighter appeared on their scanners, a massive cargo vessel designed for long-haul transport between sectors. It looked old but well-maintained, the kind of ship that had been flying the same routes for decades. The captain's face appeared on their communication screen, a Lithian with stress fractures visible across their crystalline surface. Dr. Walsh, thank the stars. This thing is tearing apart my cargo hold. I've lost 20,000 credits worth of equipment, and if it breaches the hull, we're all dead. We're docking now, Ben said. Keep your crew clear of the cargo hold. No weapons, no containment attempts. Just stay back and let us handle it. You're going in there unarmed? That's the job. The docking procedure took 15 minutes that felt like hours. Finally, their shuttle locked onto the freighter's external port and the team gathered their equipment. Ben could hear something through the hull. Crashing, roaring, the sound of metal being torn apart. Stay close, Ben said. Watch each other's backs. And remember, scared creatures make noise. The louder it is, the more frightened it is. They entered the freighter through the crew passage, following the captain's directions toward the cargo hold. The ship's interior was cramped and utilitarian, every surface dedicated to function over comfort. They passed crew members huddled in doorways, their faces showing various degrees of terror. The cargo hold's main entrance had been sealed with emergency blast doors. Deep gouges marked the metal where something had tried to claw its way through. Ready? Ben asked his team. No, Dex said honestly, but let's do it anyway. Ben entered the override code the captain had provided. The blast doors groaned open, revealing darkness beyond. Emergency lighting flickered, casting strange shadows across piles of damaged cargo containers. And somewhere in that darkness, something massive moved. Ben stepped inside first, keeping his movements slow and predictable. His team followed, spreading out to cover different angles. Amy stayed close to his left, her breathing quick but controlled. Hello, Ben called out. His voice echoed in the vast space. We're here to help. We're not going to hurt you. A growl answered him, deeper and more resonant than the Ravenclaws had been. Something shifted behind a stack of containers, and Ben caught a glimpse of movement. Large, four-legged, covered in plates of natural armor that reflected the dim light. There, Yona whispered. Pointing, the creature emerged from its hiding spot, and Ben understood why the crew had been so frightened. It stood 8 feet tall at the shoulder, with a body built like a tank. 6 eyes arranged in 2 rows of 3 watched them with predator awareness. Its mouth was filled with teeth designed for crushing, and its tail ended in a club of solid bone that had clearly been responsible for the destroyed equipment. But Ben saw something else. He saw the way it favored its right front leg. He saw the matted blood on its side where something had cut deep. He saw the way its eyes couldn't quite focus, suggesting concussion or worse. "You got hurt," Ben said softly. "You woke up in a strange place, in pain, and everyone you saw was terrified of you. So you defended yourself the only way you knew how." The creature's growl didn't diminish, but its posture shifted slightly. Still defensive, but listening. "I've got you easy, buddy," Ben said, taking one slow step forward. "Let us help." Amy moved with him, matching his pace. On his other side, Dex positioned himself to provide support if needed. Dr. Yona and Ray spread out, ready to assist from different angles. The creature watched them approach, its massive body tense with the possibility of violence. Ben kept his hands visible, his movements telegraphed well in advance. No surprises, no sudden actions 10 feet away, 5 feet, close enough that he could smell blood and fear scent mixing in the recycled air. The creature's club tail rose, ready to strike. Ben stopped but didn't retreat. "I know. I'm scary because I'm unknown. But look at me. Really look. Do I smell like I want to hurt you?" The tail wavered. Those 6 eyes studied him with an intelligence that made Ben's heart ache. This wasn't some mindless beast. This was a thinking being in pain and terror. "We're going to help," Ben said. "But I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" The creature's growl faded to a low rumble. Its tail lowered, though not completely. A compromise. Wary trust. Ben knelt, making himself smaller and less threatening. He reached into his medical kit and pulled out a scanner. "I'm going to check your injuries. This won't hurt. Just stay still for me." He activated the scanner and soft blue light washed over the creature. On his display, Ben saw the extent of the damage. Broken ribs. Internal bleeding. That leg injury was worse than he'd thought. Bone cracked in 3 places. And yes, definite signs of concussion. "You should be dead," Ben murmured. "But you're too stubborn to quit, aren't you?" The creature made a sound that might have been agreement, or might have been another warning. Ben chose to interpret it generously. "Amy, get me the bone stabilizer. Yona, I need that internal bleeding diagnostic. Dex, can you reach up and steady its shoulder? I need to examine that leg." His team moved into position, their earlier fear replaced by professional focus. This was what they'd trained for, what they'd chosen to do despite the danger. The creature tensed as Dex's 6 arms wrapped carefully around its shoulder, but it didn't strike. It stood rigid, watching Ben work on its injured leg with those 6 unblinking eyes. "Good," Ben said. "You're doing so good. This is the hard part, I know. Letting someone help when every instinct says run, but you're doing it. You're choosing to trust." The leg repair took an hour. The internal bleeding assessment took another 30 minutes. Through it all, the creature stood motionless, only occasional growls indicating its discomfort. When Ben finally stepped back, his team gathered around him. The creature was stabilized. Not healed, but no longer in immediate danger. "Now comes the harder question," Ben said. "Where do you go? You can't stay in this cargo hold, and the freighter crew is terrified of you." The creature looked at him, and Ben saw the question in those eyes. "What happens now?" "Haven," Amy suggested. "The same sanctuary where the Ravenclaw went." "If they'll take it," Ray added. "This creature is even larger and more dangerous." "They'll take it," Ben said with certainty. "I'll make sure of it." He pulled out his communicator and contacted the sanctuary directly. The conversation took 20 minutes, but by the end, Haven's director had agreed. One more rescued creature, one more chance at a peaceful life. The transport arrived 4 hours later. Captain Morris again, the same pilot who'd taken the Ravenclaw. He took one look at the armored creature and laughed. "You do find the interesting ones, Dr. Walsh." "They find me," Ben corrected. As they prepared to transfer the creature to the transport, Ben noticed the freighter's crew emerging from their hiding spots. They watched from a safe distance, their expressions a mix of awe and lingering fear. The young captain approached Ben cautiously. "How did you do that? How did you approach something that dangerous and live?" "I stopped seeing it as dangerous," Ben said. "Started seeing it as hurt. Everything else followed from there." The creature was loaded onto the transport without incident. As the ship prepared to depart, Ben pressed his hand one last time against that armored hide, feeling warmth beneath the plates. "Safe journey," he whispered. "You deserve a good life." The transport left, carrying another rescued creature to safety. Ben watched until it disappeared from view, then turned to his team. They looked exhausted but exhilarated. They'd done it, faced their fears, and helped something everyone else had given up on. "That's one," Ben said. "How many more you think we can save?" Dr. Yona's crystalline form pulsed with light. All of them. 1 year after treating the first Ravenclaw, Ben stood in the observation lounge and watched ships arrive from across the galaxy. The station had transformed from a standard waypoint into the premier facility for critical xenofauna medicine. His team had grown from 12 members to 47, representing 19 different species, all of them dedicated to the same impossible mission, saving the unsavable. "The documentary crew has arrived," Dr. Yona announced, their crystalline structure catching the light from a dozen different stars visible through the viewport. "They wish to begin filming tomorrow." Ben nodded. The Galactic Coalition had commissioned a comprehensive documentary about their methods, designed to teach other medical facilities across known space. It would show the successes and the failures, the triumphs and the heartbreaks, everything they'd learned in 12 months of trial and error. "How many cases have we completed now?" Ben asked. 47 successful treatments. 3 patients we could not save. 112 individuals trained in our methods. Yona pulled up a holographic display showing statistics that still amazed Ben. Conservation. Worlds report that creatures treated by our facility integrate into sanctuary life 300% faster than those treated with traditional containment protocols. "What about the Ravenclaw? The first one?" Yona's form seemed to brighten. "I received an update yesterday from Haven's director. It has not only thrived but has begun helping other traumatized creatures adapt to sanctuary life. It appears to remember your methods and applies them to frightened newcomers." Ben felt his throat tighten. The idea that the Ravenclaw had learned compassion from him, that it was passing that lesson to others, made every exhausting hour worth it. A communication alert chimed. Commander Prill's face appeared on the display, his purple skin showing stress patterns. "Dr. Walsh, we have a situation. A disabled cargo vessel is requesting immediate assistance. They have a creature aboard that is holding the ship hostage through its panic. Every nearby station has refused to respond." "Details?" Ben asked, already moving toward the medical bay. "The creature is unknown species. Estimated size is massive, possibly larger than anything we have treated before. Initial descriptions suggest extreme aggression, but the ship's captain believes it is injured rather than naturally hostile. Send me the coordinates. I'll take my senior team." Ben assembled his most experienced members. Dr. Yona, naturally, Amy Chen, who had proven herself on a dozen difficult cases, Dex, whose strength had saved them more than once, Ray, whose ability to read body language across species was uncanny, and 2 newer members, a human named David and a Centaurian named Cass, who had shown exceptional promise during training. The shuttle ride gave them time to review what little information existed about the creature. The cargo vessel had been hauling supplies to a research outpost when something emerged from the lower decks. Something that had apparently been hiding in the ship's systems for weeks, surviving on whatever it could scavenge. "The crew is terrified," Amy said, reading the reports. 3 injured, 2 seriously. "The captain is threatening to abandon ship if we cannot help within 12 hours. "We'll help," Ben said. It wasn't confidence. It was simply truth. They would help because that's what they did. Because somewhere in the universe a creature was hurting and afraid and no one else would try. The cargo vessel appeared on their scanners, listing slightly in space. Damage to the hull suggested the creature had tried to escape through the outer walls. Desperation, Ben thought, the worst kind of fear. They docked and entered through an auxiliary port far from where the creature had last been seen. The ship's interior was dark, emergency lighting creating more shadows than illumination. Somewhere in the distance, metal groaned under stress. "Captain, this is Dr. Walsh. Where is the creature now?" The captain's voice crackled through the comm, barely controlled panic making the words shake. "Engineering section. It's trapped itself there, but it's destroying the reactor containment. If it breaches those seals, the whole ship becomes a radiation hazard." "Understood. Keep your crew clear. We're going in." The path to engineering took them through twisted corridors where the creature had clearly passed. Claw marks scored the walls. Equipment lay scattered and broken. Blood smeared across surfaces, though whether it came from the crew or the creature, Ben couldn't tell. They reached engineering to find the main door torn completely from its frame. Inside, reactor displays flashed warning colors and the creature paced in frantic circles. It was massive, easily 15 feet tall, with a body that seemed to be all muscle and desperation. Forearms ending in claws, a tail that whipped back and forth leaving dents in the metal floor, a head with features Ben couldn't quite identify in the chaotic lighting, and eyes, so many eyes, all of them wild with terror. "Everyone stay back," Ben said quietly. "This one is going to be difficult." He stepped through the doorway alone into the engineering bay where radiation alarms screamed warnings. The creature's head snapped toward him, all those eyes focusing at once. Its body went rigid, prepared to defend or attack. "Hello," Ben said, his voice barely audible over the alarms. "My name is Ben. I'm here to help you." The creature's response was a sound like grinding stone mixed with something that might have been words. Not human words, not any language Ben recognized, but communication nonetheless. The universal language of fear and pain. Ben took one step forward, then stopped. He had learned over the past year that sometimes the bravest thing you could do was wait. Let the creature decide. Let it choose trust instead of forcing compliance. "I know you're scared," Ben continued. "I know this place is strange and wrong and everyone who sees you runs away. But I'm not running. I'm staying right here until you believe me when I say I want to help." The creature watched him. 1 minute passed, then 2. Ben remained motionless, letting his presence speak for itself. No weapons, no fear smell, just patient determination. Finally, the creature took one hesitant step toward him, then another. It moved like something that expected betrayal at any moment, ready to flee or fight depending on Ben's reaction. Ben held his ground. "That's it, come here. Let me see what's hurting you." The creature came close enough that Ben could see the extent of its injuries. Burns covered much of its body, radiation damage from prolonged exposure to the reactor. One of its arms hung useless, clearly broken. Its breathing rattled with fluid in lungs that were struggling. "You've been living near the reactor for warmth, haven't you?" Ben asked softly. "You're from a cold world. You were so cold on this ship that you risked radiation just to feel warm again." The creature made that grinding sound again, and Ben heard affirmation in it, understanding. "I've got you." "Easy, buddy," Ben whispered, reaching out to touch burned skin. "We're going to fix this. All of it." His team moved in then, carefully and slowly. They set up medical equipment while Ben kept the creature calm with constant touch and soft words. They treated the radiation burns with specialized agents designed for exactly this kind of exposure. They stabilized the broken arm. They administered fluids and medication for the lung damage. Through it all, the creature stood motionless, allowing them to work, trusting because Ben had asked it to. 4 hours later, they had done everything they could. The creature was stable, but would need weeks of recovery and rehabilitation. More importantly, it needed a place where it could heal without fear. "Haven won't work for this one," Amy said, studying the creature's physiology. "It needs cold temperatures and high radiation levels. That's its natural environment. Then we find somewhere that fits." Ben pulled up the Galactic Conservation Database. There has to be a sanctuary world with those conditions. They found one. A frozen moon orbiting a gas giant, bathed in radiation from its parent planet, perfect for creatures adapted to extreme environments. The sanctuary there specialized in beings that most of the galaxy considered too dangerous or too alien to help. The transport arrived 8 hours later. As they prepared to move the creature, it did something unexpected. It reached out with its good arm and touched Ben's face, those many eyes studying him with obvious intelligence. "You're welcome," Ben said, understanding the gesture. The creature made a sound softer than before. Then it turned and walked into the transport, ready to go home. Ben watched another ship depart, carrying another life he'd been privileged to save. Dr. Yona stood beside him, their crystalline form reflecting the transport's lights. "Why do you do this?" Yona asked. "You could have stayed on Earth, treated domestic animals, lived a comfortable life. Instead, you chose the hardest path possible." Ben thought about his sister, about that scared, sick dog that everyone wanted dead, about every animal he'd ever met that others had deemed too dangerous, too wild, too broken. "Because someone has to," he said. "Someone has to be willing to see past the teeth and the claws and the fear. Someone has to be the one who says, 'I'll try,' when everyone else says it's impossible. And if you fail? Then I fail knowing I tried everything." Ben turned to face Yona. But the thing is, we don't fail as often as people think. Most creatures want to live. Most want to heal. They just need someone brave enough to help them. An alert chimed on Ben's communicator. Another call. Another creature in crisis. This one even bigger than before, trapped on a mining colony. Aggressive and injured and running out of time. Ben looked at his team, gathered around him in the observation lounge. 47 individuals from 19 species, united by a common purpose. Each one ready to face their fears for the sake of a creature that needed help. "Well?" Ben asked. "Ready for the next one?" "Always," Dr. Yona said. "Let's go save a life." They headed to the shuttle bay together, moving with the practiced efficiency of a team that had done this 100 times before. The documentary crew followed, capturing every moment for the galaxy to see. Across known space in medical facilities on a dozen worlds, trainees watched broadcasts of Ben's methods. They studied his techniques. They learned his philosophy. And slowly, one facility at a time, the galaxy's attitude toward dangerous creatures began to change. Fear gave way to understanding. Destruction gave way to preservation. The impossible became merely difficult. And at the center of it all, a human from Montana who had learned long ago that every aggressive creature was just a scared one in need of patience, continued his work. One patient at a time, one life at a time, because that's what Earth had taught him. That's what surviving on a death world had made him. Not a warrior, not a conqueror, a healer. Somewhere in the depths of space, a massive creature larger than anything they'd faced before waited in terrified isolation. It had injured miners, destroyed equipment, held an entire colony hostage through its panic, and Ben whispered the words that had become his promise to every frightened being he encountered. "I've got you, easy buddy. I've got you."